It's almost self-disqualification, right?
Do you get annoyed that you're dumb,
And like, that's not for me, for sure. I won't handle that.
If it feels like a job, you're on the wrong job, most likely.
That's a fantastic advice.
We onboarded 0 customers.
Yeah.
What is bigger than Tesla? Let's launch some rockets.
That's another level of the budget, for sure.
Something will need to suffer, either the work or the families.
You enjoy it, and that's a good thing. Hey there, if you're new to Startup Struggles, this is the show where we dive deep into the real challenges founders face building their companies. You will hear stories you won't find in the typical success-focused podcasts. We give you raw, honest conversations about what it really takes. Thank you for being part of our story. Welcome to Startup Struggles, a podcast where we dig into founders' journey, the challenges that they faced, and how they overcome them. Today with me is Frank Sondors, or Frank Bacon as he likes to call himself. Born in Latvia, moved to the UK to study international relationships, switched to the private sector, did the big tech stint at Google and a bunch of different B2B SaaS roles, became SVP of sales with about 50-person sales org, and then quit the whole thing, bootstrapped this while supporting 2 kids, and apparently worked out of IKEA at one point. Founded Salesforge eventually, built the Forge ecosystem for the outbound with Agent Frank as the latest addition, his own AI SDR. Frank, thanks for having us to interview you. Great to have you here. If we start with your early times, and I guess something of, the founding timing of your childhood, like paint us a picture of your early life in Latvia. What was it like growing up? Who Frank was as a kid, and what did the world look like for you at that time?
Sure, I was living in a very small, let's call it town called Ventspils. So like you don't have any high tech, nothing. You don't have any ambitious people. Like there's no tech. It's like very like old school. So if somebody has been to Europe and to Eastern Europe, it's back in those days, in 1990s, whatever, you just go to school and you're hoping to get some job in some sort of office, probably in the capital of the country called Riga. And that's as ambitious or as it gets really back in those days. But, as a kid, I was always very competitive, just on all fronts from, joining sort of Olympiads and competitions and etc. I used to play also a lot, or rather what I would call hardcore video games as well, and competing and winning was just generally a thing. I think also video games has a quite a good correlation with being successful and competitive. Just generally, that's a lot of people disagree with me. Like then you would say any video gamer could do that. I was like, no. Like if you're competitive in video gaming and you treat the video game, as a goal to achieve and win, etc. Like all the time, and you do everything you can, that helps you also later in life. Whether that's in sales, etc. So yeah, like very poor, by the way. So I didn't have a lot of money at all. I still remember. My mom wanted to buy me a bus ticket for the month, which back then would be like $5 or something. Literally back then, with $5 for the month. And I said, "No, can I have the $5?" And I'm just gonna walk to school. And I had to walk through a lot of snow. There's a lot of snow right now in Europe. So back in the days, there was also a lot of snow, and the cold, etc. And yeah, it was miserable. Like you would call me a sort of working class kid. Not even working class because we didn't have a lot of money essentially. Bottom line. So then everything that you kind of do as a kid, you sort of optimize literally everything, like every single cent, sort of. I had even this book where I would jot down that I would like how much I spend and stuff like that. Like so, like you were calculating every single cent. So then, yeah. And then somehow, when I was, growing up, I was 16, etc., whatever, my mom said to me, so we joined the European Union back then. And my mom was telling to me, son, now we're part of the EU. Do you want to go to the West and do you want to study? And I was like, I thought to myself, damn, that's something else, something new and fresh, I was like, sure, why not, and I back then thought to myself, okay, where can I go? And there were really a couple options only. So either I go to the UK or either I go to Germany. So I also, when I was a kid, I also I was fluent in German. Actually, I was watching Japanese cartoons on a German satellite dish.
Cool.
My dad installed it, and the best cartoons were on that channel called RTL2. Anyway, so I was like either Germany or either the Brits, and I thought that the Germans are a bit more boring and Brits are a bit more fun, and then I thought that the UK is the closest thing to the US, the big country, economy, wealth, the American dream, whatever. So UK is much closer to that than the Germans. So then I decided to go to UK, and then that's where I got educated, and then the life sort of went on from there. So yeah,
Very interesting journey. I mean, it's again, part luck in some ways, joining the EU, but at the same time, the drive that you had. You think some of this still influences how you lead today or make decisions today, like that time, during the childhood, but you had to, really save and just look at things from different
well,
perspectives?
yeah, I think what you learn, I think, and that does come, I think, as a kid, is sort of frugality, essentially, being frugal. And that's one thing, right? So you are optimizing essentially everything in life. So frugality is one thing I think that kicks in as a kid because you are poor. So you know what poor means. My kids are currently not poor. So then I look at them as like, damn, these brats, And I always think to myself, I was so poor. And then my kids have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of toys right now at home. Bought by grandparents and myself, not myself actually, my missus. I actually don't buy toys, funny enough. I don't buy toys for my kids, but everybody else does buy. And that's kind of, side note there. But it does impact. So frugality is one thing, I think. And then the other thing I think that kicks in and stays with you for the rest of your life is a work ethic. So the way to look at it, a lot of people these days don't understand what work ethic means, and you need to put in the hours and you need to do real work. And people are more in the socialist realm of I clock in at 9, I clock out at 5, and that's it. I go on with my life, and that's called the most of the Europe. In the US, naturally things are a bit differently. It's capitalism; you can get fired anytime, and so on and so forth. But the work ethic also stayed, on with me. And that's how I somehow, landed in sales, because you get rewarded for hard work, or putting in the hours and actually closing deals. So there was that close alignment. And then that leads to, rising through the ranks and becoming head of sales, leading large sales teams, and crushing it there. And then ultimately building a company where then you scale in the first year to $3 million in ARR, right? So the childhood does impact you to, to put in the hours, because, there's also a saying that how you compare, let's say, European founders and the American founders. The European founders don't put in the 7 days a week that you really need to put in to succeed with all the competition that you have in place. Whereas the Americans are totally happy to work at least 6 days a week. Saturday is the day when you take off, but like founders just typically work Monday to Sunday in the Bay Area, whatever, and you don't see the same work ethic. And then a lot of people say, well, we don't have to work as hard. I was like, sure, you can enjoy life, but then you're not building the wealth in Europe that you should be building. So then, if you go to the big arena, just generally out there, like, it doesn't matter which big arena, you only hear about few parts of the world: US, naturally, China, and India. Europe is not even important, like, at all. So the problem, it stems, from the Europeans are not sort of, let's call it, serious, or the way we do business is old school. People don't put in the hours. People chill too much, whatever they're doing, So, and that's not, so I personally do not agree with that. It doesn't bode with, I'm more of a, even though I was born out of the small town, I believe in hard work, and you're being persistent, things will happen to you. It's the American way, let's go that way. Yeah, and I don't spend time on kind of, what I call dilly-dallying, on kind of stuff that doesn't actually contribute to me being a better person professionally, for example, that may contribute to my business, etc. I'm always thinking about kind of, chapters of life, right? So how can I be a better person, more competent person, but not what I'm talking about is what is the pace of that? How fast does that happen? Because I don't want to be, I don't want to do things ever slowly, anything. So it has to be at a particular velocity level. When I think about, if my peers do, I don't know, they do 10 phone calls, I will do 100. I always think I'm going to do 10x more, because I want to be the number one. And maybe you're not the most competent person sometimes, but I'm going to put in the hours, because I know how to play. The game is essentially either I convert really well and I'm the best converter, I close every deal, whatever, Or if I can't do that because maybe I have an accent or whatever the problem is with me, right, as an individual, I got to put in more hours. And the people that put in more work, more hours can, be as good as the guys that convert as well, right, or put in less hours. But and then of course, you have to be smart about the way you do things. So it's not just about putting more hours, etc. Just it's also about improving your competence in multiple areas, and you have to be, I typically say, when you wake up in the morning and you go into the mirror and you look at yourself, just understand the areas that you're very strong at. Let's say for lead sales or doing some other things, and then what you're not strong at, and just try and be sort of honest with you. Sort of, what are your areas of weakness? What you're not strong at, sort of, let's say I'm not strong at, let's call it engineering. I don't code. And I, on purpose, never going to learn code because you should not try and do everything or learn everything. I think that's not a really good thing in your life. If you're getting a dopamine hit in a particular area of, let's call it work, and that's for me sales or speaking to people, etc., then do more of that than doing engineering and coding because I'm dying when I do that. That's when I speak to a lot of people, and I interview, for example, people today, and I asked this guy that is applying for a job, and I'm asking him, so what drives you? What drives you in sales? He's applying for a sales job, and unless he gives me a really good answer, like I'm struggling to see that he's going to have enough motivation and drive to succeed, because you need to have this sort of inner motivation. I'm not here to motivate the person. I think a lot of success from people come from the inner motivation. They have their own drive. And then the managers, whatever, the people around, is just an amplifier, sure. But there has to be this inner motivation. You want to be the number one. You wanna crush. You have ambitions. You have goals in life. And one of the things I love to ask in the interview is like a person. So what are you up to? Where are you headed? What's the goal? What's the North Star? Because you want to figure out, are they ambitious enough? Because I don't want to hire people that that are not ambitious. Let's go that way. You have to exhibit. And there has to be that energy that drives, and you're like, yeah, I believe in you. So I hire because I'm putting, I take a risk to, and for me to do risk a person is like, I like the energy, I like the way they speak about themselves, and even though not very competent, I believe you can build up competence, especially today when there's a lot of AI stuff, etc. A lot of people don't know what they're doing, and that's fine. And I think my question then it becomes like, how quickly, like, do you have the motivation to actually learn and get better? Do you get annoyed that you're dumb,
like you don't have enough.
Yes, I am annoyed. Will you actually open ChatGPT and search for it? A lot of people don't do that. Just ignore, And that's what you're looking for in people that are, problem solvers, that can self-resolve, they move forward, they have drive and everything. And yeah, it comes from the, childhood days, and you just kind of take it at every chapter of your life. So
putting the hours and getting the ethics. And I think it was Michael Jordan, if I remember right, or one of those basketball players that would come in before everybody and leave after everybody, and he was the top of the game, but he was still putting the time and the hours, making sure that he doesn't miss on any opportunity to learn.
Well, yes, but the way I also think about it is that the let's call it the work, whatever you're doing, you like, if that is not a hobby for you, then it's probably you're in the wrong job. If it feels like a job, you're in the wrong job, most likely. So yes, I'm also the person that typically comes in first and leaves last. So last night, guess what? I left at 3 a.m. There was nobody there in the office, So, and why am I putting in the hours as a CEO? Why others? It doesn't matter, who's in or out. But like, you will see that who's coming in first, who's staying up a bit later, who makes sure that the stuff gets done, etc. And then as a result, you'll get rewarded for the impact. For me, I could just go home at whatever time, So, but I don't do it for something. I just, I like that stuff gets done and executed, etc. And if I don't have the resource or whatever, I'll do it myself till whatever hour it's required to get that done. Because I take pride when things move and there's velocity. There's the, we have what we call the ship, or maybe the other way to look at it is like we are rowing. We are on a rowing team. Everybody has to be rowing, right? But to ensure my team rows and customers row, we're all going forwards, we have to play as a team, but there's the leader, and the leader has to make sure the team is rowing. We're all rowing. We're all going forwards, And if I'm the guy that needs to stay up till 3 a.m. to make sure that next day we're rowing and we're going, I'm totally fine, I went to bed at 3 a.m. I woke up today at 8 a.m. and I'm ready to rock and roll because I'm ready to, hit Addy, And that's the energy, and that's how you should have to look at it. If you're going to start complaining that you didn't sleep last night, I was like, dude, you should go and work somewhere else. Go work for some corporate company if you want to. And that's not a thing I ask in interviews sometimes. Sometimes when I sort of sniff out that the person it sounds like corporate, I was like, so and I ask very specific questions like, so do you understand what happens in a startup? And then the person says, yes, okay. And it's like, do you understand what happens at a top 1% startup where things have to move extremely fast?
Mm-hmm.
And the person typically has never had that experience. And when you join our company, you will, it's like, buckle up. You better buckle up, here at the Forge. So a lot of people, it's like sort of drown and swim, right? So it's like getting on a train. The train moves very fast. Can you keep up with the speed? No, you kind of get aboard. And then other people that really like the speed, like the energy, like how every month things change, people get energized even more. It's like, this sort of engine
Yeah.
That's like me. So I'm also this sort of, it's a bit of like an engine. So yeah.
It's almost self disqualification, right? Like in sales, when people see this sort of environment, they're like, that's not for me for sure. I won't handle that. That's good because that means they're self disqualified from the process, and you've saved a lot of time and money by hiring them. So before Salesforge's success, I've read you actually had another startup back in 2017. What happened to that?
It wasn't a consulting. It was my own little company, like a freelancer company, that I had. Mm-hmm. But really, I was supporting the American company. Supporting. I was, the employee essentially working just for them full time. And no, like Salesforge is my really what you call proper first company that you can call a company. Where you're running a software, whatever, and you're hiring people, etc.
Makes sense.
I did nothing in the past prior to that. I think the story here was that. So I left Watergraph as a VP sales, and then the back then you kind of were thinking, so what's next? Do I become a head of sales for another company, like another software company? And I'm very good at sales, and I can sell any software that's good software that has product market fit, and I can help them scale and essentially make another CEO very rich or whatever. And I was like, damn, I'm being very, like, this is where my comfort zone. But as I said, in order to grow as a person, you should always do things that feel not comfortable to you. Mm-hmm. And so, because wherever you are not comfortable, it pushes you to grow. Because if I'm going to do the same thing, like selling software for another CEO, I'm not going to learn anything, I can, my old boss used to tell me I can sell ice to an Eskimo, And so what am I going to learn there? Nothing. If you're learning nothing, it's not exciting for me. I don't do also things just for, more money, essentially. So that was a very well-paid job, probably my best paying job ever. And now they're a customer, by the way, but that company. So I could be the head of sales, really good pay job. And then I said to myself, back then, is this really what I want to do? Just make, again, a lot more money and accumulate more wealth. It sounds like an easy option, It's like, I'm not going to learn anything. And then I thought to myself, what's the worst thing I can do to myself right now? Earn a lot of money and be good at that. And I was like, well, there's this startup thing, What if I could just build my own software, sell that, Right? And all I have to do is find at least one dude or a girl, whatever, doesn't matter who that is, one or two, whatever. I found two in the end, and build or solve a problem. That's what I call a $1 billion problem in a big market, and big enough of a market, big enough of a problem that people care about. It's a painkiller problem. It's not a vitamin, and needs to be solved, and it will be huge, 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 huge in the future. And let's do that. That sounds like the next chapter. That sounds like big enough of a challenge. From a head of sales to some CEO of some big problem that you're looking to solve. And because it was the unknown. So the 10 years that I spent sort of, let's call it in sales or commercial roles, I took that with me to start a company. So I felt very good. And I think the other reason why I thought to myself that I could potentially do good job as a CEO, I think I looked at other CEOs and I thought that I'm stronger. You have this feeling sometimes like, I think I could do a better job than you. If I would start another company. And because sometimes you will get into a fight with the CEO about something, right? When you're reporting to them. And then you feel like, what's that?
Difference of opinions, for sure.
Yeah. So, but then I understand that person is the boss. And that's how things are done. And it's same here at the Forge, a lot of the things that we implement is because Frank said so. But then I have a lot of kind of domain expertise in the field that sure, you can argue about the point, but then you have to have really strong reasons why I'm wrong. And I'm totally fine to be wrong. It's just you have to back it up with a lot of stuff. So I'm very good at backing up with data and evidence and customer conversations, whatever, that this is the right thing to do. And I'm not always right or whatever, right? But I have good, I think, sense of a hunch and where things need to move, that and how fast you need to make this, let's say, the failures, the velocity of failure making, that you get to the success. I always think about, back in my days at Google when I used to work there, that Google runs like a lot of tests. Even on Google search engine, they keep running many tests that you typically don't see because you don't notice the difference. But they would test like a pixel, whatever. They're like micro tests, even like that. But in order to win a single test, typically in the company, you need to run 10 tests. So I always like to push the business forward by running many tests. To win that one test, you need to run 10. So you need to be that means you need to be comfortable with failure, right? So when you go into a conversation with the CEO, even me here internally, failure is not a problem. You can call this a fuck up, but it's not a fuck up. It's actually what you're trying to do in the business is generate learnings as quickly and as many as possible, so that when you're actually smart and you've done a lot of it, you know what worked, what doesn't. And then what works, you scale that up. So that test that has won, you want to increase the volume 10x on that test. You're looking for this stuff, right? So I'll give you an example. So, I want to grow this company at least, let's say 3 to 10x this year, right? I'm very ambitious. You tell the team, guys, we need to grow. But to grow to the level, like 3x at least this year, I need to have enough bets, or what we call the bacon bets, 100 bacon bets, enough bets in the pipe to actually move the needle. It has to be something big enough. Because tiny things, testing them, it's just waste of time, really. You'd rather work on this one test that could be like a 10x thing or 100x thing. And that's also when I was a little kid or whatever, growing up, what could be the big thing I could do, So and you're searching for that rather than, let me do this little thing,
If you're finding value in these stories, please hit subscribe. You will really help us reach more founders who need to hear they're not alone in the struggle. Thank you for being part of our story. In the early days of Salesforge, what sort of things you've failed through? How was the establishment of these things? Because I'm sure you've done many more tests than 100 to build it within the the environment that you have now.
I mean, there were many tests. I mean, it's on a lot of failure.
Tell me one that really failed that you were like, oh, you know what, we really pushed our boundaries here.
So the test was, we wanted to own what we call top of the funnel for search terms on Google and Geo, so ChatGPT, etc. And we thought to ourselves, what if we would build what we call the G2 of the space, or Skyscan of the space, essentially an aggregator that reviews all the softwares in the market. And essentially, it's a totally different website that we own. So there is this website; it still exists. Okay. And so we spent a lot of resource into that website. The thought process was that, and so the idea came from another totally space. Typically,
just to understand 100%. Yeah. So this is basically, you're researching the industry, and then you bring out all the players in that industry, or the tools in that industry. Okay.
Yeah, but the way that the customer compares these players, etc., is dictated by us. So we manipulate the mind share, essentially, right? So the thought process was, what if we somehow funnel the users more down our site, our properties, It's like creating sort of, let's call it a media arm on top of a software. By the way, that's a different sort of thing that we're going to launch probably later this year. There will be a media arm to our business. And the reason why that needs to happen is because when the business has a media arm, like, on top of the actual core business, that drives a lot of funnel kind of down, right? So we thought to ourselves, again, like there's this, any aggregator like Skyscan or other aggregator, you aggregate something, customer compares, and then customer chooses one of them, And so we wanted to own the comparison experience and build it. So essentially, you're building a totally unrelated site to your business. You're spending a lot of engineering resources, etc., to actually build the site. You build funnels, whatever, in there. But what didn't happen in the end, we couldn't index that site. Something was wrong. And I think, whether that was me, that's, people also warned me, Frank, it's not a really good test. And I was like, well, I was looking at other spaces, like totally unrelated spaces like finance, maybe insurance, etc. And I know that those guys also have aggregator sites that they own, and they funnel traffic down to their properties. And I thought I'm gonna do the same in SaaS. Why wouldn't I? And I have the resource, manpower, everything, brains, and how to think. So the area that we failed is we couldn't drive the traffic to the site. We're still not driving traffic. We're not indexing. I'm a guy that doesn't like to lose, as per se. My test, okay, it has lost, but is there a way to revive it? This test, can we do another test? And I will want to do another test because I still believe in this idea of building an aggregator on top of this SaaS category, and then the users would compare. And it's a nice comparison engine. Like the site itself is good. So anyway, so if somebody has idea, by the way, do knock on my doors on LinkedIn. But then there's another test, I'll give you an example, that also has failed. And we're going to retest it again this year, hopefully. I need the right person for this and the right strategy, maybe the right partner. But the test is, we thought to ourselves, what is the way to reach out to customers, but with a bit of a pattern interrupt, essentially. We like to do pattern interrupt, or my colleague calls me chief pattern interrupt. Frank interacts all patterns possible. And I thought to myself, okay, we send cold emails and we do LinkedIn messages, so we do the digital stuff of outreach. And what if we would just send direct mail? What if we would just send mail to heads of sales in the US and see how would that perform? So we found 4,000 targets, and we found the address. We built this nice, beautiful letter, and it said for your intentional only, something for your intentional only, like super, like anyway, it definitely would have to go to this person. Only they can open it. And then we said, you are qualified for this AI SDR agent, Frank. You are the ideal customer of this. We want you, and we're going to give you 1 month for free, whatever. It was very beautifully done. But we onboarded zero customers. And I was like, damn, sending 4,000 mails in the US to the right people and we get zero customers. And you're wondering, what did we do wrong? And you just don't know. Did we have we had like 1 or 2 conversations, but 1 to 2 conversations from beautiful direct mail, that was a good test. I'm still very surprised about it. It's like, I was like, damn.
How does it make you feel, like personally, when you spend a lot of effort, I'm sure a lot of money on that as well.
A lot of effort.
How does it make you feel?
A lot of money as well, effort, thought process, discussions, thousands of dollars, whatever, right? Let's say 10K, this was that. So 10K down the drain. Did we learn something? Unfortunately, that's the problem. Nothing. We learned nothing. It's like the previous test about the website. We know why it's not working, but we don't know why. We learned like nothing about that. We haven't learned even if the website works because there's no traffic coming through. Here, we got no response from the prospects. So we don't know what the problem is. We cannot ask the prospects. Well, I mean, you could email them, right? Whatever. But like, you were expecting something to come back. People were like, oh, Frank, I got your mail. Cool. Like, we were expecting a lot more of that, but nothing happened. So getting nothing back from the other party, yes, you feel like, damn, I've done a bad job, essentially, right? And you're trying to figure out in your head, where did it go wrong? And like something, and whenever I cannot answer this question, you're like, it still puzzles you still today. That's why we're talking about it. I always think to myself, so I'm let's say CEO in this office. Could somebody send me a mail? Yes, they could get my email, sort of my address. They could send me mail. I would receive it. I would open it. I would look at it. It's like, oh, that's cool. Guess what? I have never received mail in form of an outreach that somebody would invite me to check out the software. Never. Maybe that's because I'm in Europe and nobody targets Europeans. That could be the case.
Depends.
But I would open it. I was like, wow, that's cool. And I've been seeing, also on LinkedIn and social media, people send iPhones, mail, presents, etc. And I just wanted to start with just simple mail, just to see if it performed. Maybe if I raise, a fundraise, like a next Series A or so, I'll buy some iPhones and send it to people and see if that happens. That'll be great.
Another level of the budget for sure.
Yes.
And so how you've learned to manage your mental game of entrepreneurship? Because you've got always these ups and downs, right? I mean, spending and not working, this is one thing in terms of the trials and tests, but I'm sure you've had very close moments in terms of, the funding and in terms of the team. How do you usually manage that mental game?
Good question. So fun fact about me. So typically my managers, whenever I used to do performance review, they would tell me Frank is a machine. So that means I manage my emotional state pretty well, but I am at the same time pretty, let's call it energetic / aggressive. Somebody said intimidating recently. So there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of drive, there's many targets, etc. So everybody needs to move, everybody needs to push. And yes, there's plenty of moments where, even right now, where things are not working out. There's some things that are not really working at all, and some major things that need to be solved right now in the business, and some are smaller things that need to be solved. And I would like to just do this and solve it, But unfortunately, the way that naturally there are multiple problems where it's kind of not up to you. It's either up to the market, other employees, or whatever founders and stuff like that. It kind of be solved. But when I look at any problems that you have, doesn't matter business problems, not business problems, is there has to be progress. So there can't be what's called a stale, like a limbo state on any problem. This problem has to go away. And yes, maybe it takes some time, but there's progress on this problem, and this problem will go away. There are problems in the business or like in a personal life where it just is there like many, many years, and you don't do anything about it. That's not something that I accept personally. Like I believe in I'm a guy that executes. I believe in execution, progress. There's a resolution and happy days at the end. Let's call it that way. It's like building a business. Yes, there will be many challenges. We'll go through them, but eventually we'll exit and become whatever billion-dollar company, etc. And I embrace challenge. I have no issues with problems. I'm ready to accept any problems and challenges. But we have to have a plan of how we're going to kill this problem. I do it like in a sort of waterfall style. There's a plan A, B, and C. I'm going to go with plan A, but back of my mind, I already have cooking plan B and C, just in case. And that's how I think about, sort of anything that I have in life, really. Because, in 5 years, I'm going to be a very different person with a lot of more competence and a lot more problems, having, solved problems, under my belt. And having solved these problems is the sort of the learning and competence that you sort of build up, so that the next thing I'm going to do, I already have another startup in mind, by the way. So just give you an idea. So this is an example of, like from a kind of challenge standpoint. So this idea, Salesforge, and what we do, I'm thinking of this like a $1 billion company, right? As an example. So 5 to 10 years timeline, $1 billion company, exit, whatever. But the next idea, if this is a $1 billion idea, the next idea I already have in mind is a $1 trillion idea. That's the upgrade essentially.
Well, if I go by your metric from before, you just 100x the whole thing. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking, what is bigger than this? Because I'm already in a very big market with this. So, okay, but it can't be $1 trillion. Okay, it's $1 billion. Okay, fair enough. And then I'm thinking, what is bigger than this? Like, what is bigger? It's like Elon Musk. Just think of Elon Musk kind of. What is bigger than Tesla? Let's launch some rockets. It's kind of that's the thinking that I have as well. What's bigger than this? Well, I'm not gonna go launch rockets. So what else I can do that Elon Musk will not do? And that's what I want to do. So that's it. There's so many problems that haven't been solved in the world in a particular way, or with technology, etc. So I'm always thinking back in my head, where are the big markets, millions and billions of people doing something, activities, and where are problems that people want them to be gone, evaporate? They would pay a lot of money for this, etc. And just think big. Whether people want to go to the moon or whether people want to do this and this, what is the big thing? Because the other thing, just to finish off here, that I'm thinking of, like, if I'm going to be here in, let's say, I want to leave essentially the legacy in a particular space that I'm working in. So in sales technology, whatever that I'm in, I want to increase efficiencies. I want this to be the number one thing, in the space. The next problem I want to solve in a totally different space where I'm not comfortable again, but it's also at the same time, 100x bigger thing, to solve. And nobody's better to solve. Like, there's no person that's sort of equipped or has domain expertise for that problem. And I thought, I'm going to tackle that, I'm going to have plenty of money in the bank, plenty of ambition, plenty of experience. They're going to go and tackle that 100x thing, the $1 trillion thing. And I'm going to go and attempt that, So, yeah.
Very cool. I don't know if you are ever uncertain, but who do you confide in when you are uncertain? Do you speak to anybody that, here's my kind of 2 ways of going, this is my plan B, A? Do you have somebody, a close friend, fellow founder, somebody else?
Typically, most of my conversations have to do something with business and making money. So yes, there's plenty of, business owners they talk about uncertainty. Like even yesterday, I was talking to somebody and somebody said, these are very uncertain times with everything that's happening with Trump and everything, and it impacts their business, tariffs, whatever you name it. Yeah. there are those things that are, because of geopolitical stuff, maybe that's where people are, there's uncertainty here and there. What I try always do in my life to ensure, let's call it success, and to ensure certainty, to ensure everything, is I increase the luck surface area. So I optimize or engineer luck for myself, for my business, for my team, for my wife, for my kids, etc. How do you just get more lucky, like you have more predictability in life? What needs to happen? Who do you need to meet? Where do you need to meet them? What needs to happen? What type of co-founders you need to get to just get more lucky eventually? How do you make sure like success, you're certain about your success in 5 years? Essentially, it's hard to talk about this topic, but it's like having this little machine learning sort of in my head that always keeps on running, and I do probability, trying to figure out the probability of X and this and that having success right now and leading that to a greater outcome. So it's like the little machine learning in your brain that keeps on running with all my context over the years in different places and sales and thousands of founders and people that I talk to, trying to think what would be the best possible, or what is the failure rate of this or that, and you just need to sort of stack rank it a bit, and then have this sort of thing running in your head. People are not very good at that. So the way maybe to do this is, and I picked this up from somewhere else. So I always say the best way to focus is to defocus first. Let's say we're starting a new company and we're saying these are the markets that we're gonna go with. Well, you don't say that. No, you start with a different exercise, which is like let's look at the map, and we're not gonna go in these markets ever, and there's some reasons for that. So then the rest becomes focus, right? And by doing this actually exercise for many things in life, actually leads to to better outcomes essentially. So so then you just need to flip the way you do things, and I highly advise to kind of think about it and do the sort of exercises in everything that you do, and you will see that actually you are making better decisions by saying categorically no to these, let's call it other countries in this example, because the rest becomes a focus there, right? So because you're trying to limit it, but you cannot. But then that means that's it. We're focusing on this, guys, and it has helped me, I think, many times in my life to just be slightly more, lucky, essentially.
That's a fantastic advice. I think saying no, generally speaking, to a lot of other things than saying yes to many things is a really good advice, and it focuses you on the things that are super important, or driving to this 10x 100%.
Yeah. So like the learning how to say, like exactly what you said, learning how to say no to a potential customer, to a potential feature request, to a potential, I don't know, I'll give you an example. Somebody said, Frank, can we grab a coffee? And I'll be like, no. Can I grab 10 minutes of your time next week? Nope. Because the way I think about some of the things is not going to increase my luck surface area. So like, because by spending time here, I'm not spending time there, and my time is finite. So the fact that we are even speaking to each other is me optimizing for luck. And I would spend time with you, not something else, because I believe with you right now on here, I gotta be more lucky. So that's how I think about it. So learning to say yes and no, and qualifying essentially every micro opportunity, even every request. So when you ping me on LinkedIn, I qualify that, yes or no, and switching on my machine learning, and trying to figure out is this getting more lucky versus that opportunity, etc. So you'll find out, especially when you become the founder or the CEO of a company, you get so many opportunities, so many investors knocking your doors, and investors, every week I get the 10 investor friends. Can we talk to you? Can we talk to you, Frank? Can we talk to you about this? When are you raising your next round? And so it's an opportunity in a way, but you need to learn to ghost them, or like investors that maybe you don't want to do business with, or to say, or just to be nice and saying, sorry, it's not a time. I don't want to check in with you. I will check in with you at the the right time. And so this is maybe one other thought I have, is that everything I do in life is like there has to be sort of this compound build in competence and in trying to get more lucky, etc. And luck comes also from the network and the people that you know. Because me and you, we met in another instance, right? So and then it led to this instance, right? So and what we're doing here, and and that compounds, and there will be a next opportunity, right? And next opportunity, right? And so on and so forth. And it leads to the right things in your life
Mm-hmm.
and less to the wrong things in your life that you don't want to happen, right? So, so that's why I'm saying this is sort of this little machine learning.
Mm-hmm.
Try to predict that these items lead to worse outcomes in your life, and don't do them if you're predicting they're not getting you anywhere essentially in life. And then you're predicting that these outcomes lead to better things in life. Just try and do more of them.
Sounds like what you're saying in a nutshell is you have a choice here, right? So if you're choosing one direction, if you're choosing the vector that you're going with, and you're calculating, we're still predicting, we're still calculating things in advance, but you're actually making that conscious choice rather than saying, well, this is where I'm going, and this is the sort of the floating that I'm doing right now. It makes a huge difference, and that's when you come around to the right place.
Yeah, the other way to look at it is maybe not from a probabilistic standpoint, but like a tree branch essentially, right? So here's an opportunity, it presents itself. You can say yes and no, or maybe whatever, right? And this may happen essentially. So I also have a lot of sort of conscious things in my head, for example, right now that I know that things could actually be much better in my life right now if I would, if I would actually, go and what I call have the balls for it essentially, which is, so my wife doesn't want to move to the US.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I can get a lot more lucky if I would move right now to the Bay. But I'm in Europe and I'm stuck. And I'm stuck because of her, because she wants to be here with the kids and everything. So I am less lucky right now in Europe than in the US. And that's an example of where you have this, subconscious, you're not very comfortable. You're in the wrong location in the world for what you're doing, where you are, the ambition you have, etc. You could be a lot more lucky in the right place with the right people surrounded, and the right capital and everything, in your life. So so that's an example where you're like, damn, but I could be a lot more lucky if I would just do this. So you have to be conscious where you're building things, with whom you're surrounded, and many other things. Even the people that you are in the room, right? This is a saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I want to be the dumbest person in every room, if I'm very honest. I want to go into a room. It's like, damn, these guys are really cool. That's that's the rooms I want to be in, and learn something. Again, learning something from them, right? So but I like to do also value exchange. But the struggle I find in Europe, and it's due to the way the Europeans are. You always feel like you're slightly more clever in the room than anybody else. And in the US, I feel vice versa. This is where I feel like, oh, damn, it's good to be dumb again,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of smarter people on average I find in the US on average than in Europe, due to sophistication, due to capital, due to many things. So this is why I also get more dopamine hit by being surrounded by smarter people than I am. That pushes me even harder than right now to achieve greatness, right? So this is where you have this sort of dilemma between sort of, work and life. But my old boss used to tell me, happy wife, happy life, Maybe there's some happiness there that I'm not thinking of necessarily, but I'm always very capitalistic, as in, because I always also say, in life, to even, so that's an example for sort of defocusing. If you want to be extremely successful in life, and you have, you're doing work in life, right? You're building a startup, whatever, but you also have family at the same time. Something will need to suffer, either the work or the family. So in my case, it's actually the family where I'm spending very little time. So I'll give you an example. I'm in the office at 9 a.m. and I'm at home at 3 a.m.
Yeah, this is almost no time.
The Monday to Friday, there's like no time. See, so the dad isn't around much, or like 3 a.m. is not normal. But let's say midnight is typically normal. So I'm only home at midnight, Monday to Friday, and that's the work ethic that I'm talking about, right? And that's because I'm over-indexing on the work bit, because I think to get to these levels of like extreme success and it's luck plays into that as well. But as I said, you will need to put extreme hours into this to make things happen. Greatness doesn't come just from sitting around 9 to 6 and going home, unfortunately. Feel free to disagree with me, send me a DM and I'll show you my numbers. I always say that I have data to back up. I have many things to back up, to say that putting in more hours actually leads to far more greatness than doing the 9 to 6. And sure, people like to do work-life balance, but for me, what I do is a hobby. It's not work for me. That's the way I look at it.
You enjoy it, and that's a good thing.
You enjoy it, and it drives you, it drives the business, drives everybody, the team, the like everybody around you, right? So So this is where and I get more. So this is also where you look at yourself in the mirror. You would say, by doing more work, actually, I get more dopamine hit than spending with the family.
Mm-hmm.
So you also have to be with yourself. So there's a lot of people that get more dopamine hit by spending with the family, and this is why they prioritize the family. But in my case, the extreme dopamine hits come actually from work, and there are people like that.
That's the
Yeah.
choice. And that's the choice. Frank, amazing. I mean, privileged to have you, and it was really good to talk to you. I'm sure we'll see each other around again. Thank you. All the best and good luck with Frank AI. I think that's an amazing agent that's going to drive you even further down the big rabbit hole. Thanks, Frank. Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.
Yes.